2023 wasn't a good year for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to make 2024 a better one for myself. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Head to factormeals.com/C350 and use the promo code C350 to get 50% off. That's code C350 at factormeals.com/C350 to get 50% off.
Right side, he's got Bustin' through, making the tackle. Shaq Thompson for a 3-yard loss.
Bustin' through. My goodness. When you from what we see, no offense coming to fruition because Cam is actually a pocket quarterback. Who knew? Oh my goodness.
Tackles the Camry, busting through at the 30, 35, 40. Quick race down the right side. Here he goes at the 50, 40, to the Miami 30, 20, at the 10. A swipe with the ankles. They can't get him. Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey.
They can't get him.
They can't catch him, but you can catch us. It's Tuesday night. It's the C3 Panthers podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. And I got to say, it's a party. That's right. It's a party. It's episode 52. That's right. 6 years deep. We hit 52, more than that this season, Cody. And I've done a lot of it with my buddy, Cody Lashney. What's up, my friend?
Tony Dunn, it's another Tuesday night, hopefully one of many more to come. I'm happy to be here, man. There's so much to talk about. It seems like every Tuesday night, man, even in the off season with nothing happening now, there's a ton to talk about. I'd rather be talking about it with no one else than you and these beautiful people in the chat. Susan Deans, I see you in the YouTube chat. Tin Tizzy, Underground West. We love you all. Let's do it, man. We're ready to go.
It's a party, folks. Tonight's show is Seniors Eat Free Agency. We're going to be talking about Cam Newton's shoulder and the arthroscopic surgery that has occurred since our last show and some of the discussion around that. We'll also be continuing our discussion on free agency this week. Landon Collins is on our radar, and we've got Jerry Foley from the Giant Insider, senior editor, to help us kind of figure out where the Giants are at in free agency, as well as where Landon Collins fits in their picture. And we'll be kind of asking ourselves, Cody, towards the back end of the show, Landon Collins or Eric Reed on a good day?
Yeah, man, it's definitely an interesting question that the Panthers are going to have to make a decision on, whether or not we want to extend Eric or bring in someone potentially even better than Eric, who might also be more expensive.
There is news today about some kind of minor free agency additions or continued signings of the Panthers have extended 2 guys. We'll talk about Obata and Manhurt's extension, as well as looking at the Senior Bowl, which to me, in my mind, has replaced the Pro Bowl. And at the same time, I haven't watched much of any, so I'm going to have to ask Cody Lashney a lot about that. So you can be a part of that conversation. The number's 252-228-5098. That's the Cat Calls line. You can leave a message there anytime, not only during the show, but after and throughout the week. Follow the show, subscribe. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button wherever you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and just continue to help us in the offseason go for 52 more. And don't worry, we're boycotting the Super Bowl, or at least we're all Rams fans for a moment. All right, Cody, let's go ahead and jump into this. Cam has undergone the knife again. I believe that he is kind of shy when it comes to going under the knife. Like, who wouldn't be? But he is gone. He is arthroscopic surgery. Reports come out, and the team physician has done this. This is described by the team. What I thought was awesome, man, is this team had an opportunity to beat the news. They are trying to own their own news, right? And they should. They're this giant billion-dollar organization. They have the opportunity to employ writers and reporters that are of the caliber of independent or third-party reporters, so they can control the news. And then it breaks that Cam Newton has had arthroscopic surgery, and I go to the Post, and it says Cam Newton has undergone minor arthroscopic surgery. It was exactly 4 sentences. The blog post was exactly 4 sentences. They just said, Cam Newton, quarterback who has had trouble with his shoulder, has undergone surgery. I was like, guys, can you at least go ahead and get ahead of this? Cody, they say it's minor. They say it's a cleanup. What's your panic reaction?
Well, it's not really a panic reaction. It tells me that they were looking to find out more. So it basically means that it was a scope. They were putting a camera in there and trying to see what damage was done, if anything was torn, if something was broken or out of place. You know, I mean, this is the franchise quarterback. You know, we've said numerous times that the Panthers live and die with Cam Newton. So I think doing this at this point in the ball game early on enough, that way if we see a problem, we'll be able to do something about it. Hopefully early enough, earlier than the last surgery that he had, which kind of came way later than people thought it should have happened. I do think that this is the right time. And, yeah, I think that Cam Newton – also, think if you're Cam Newton, the team doesn't know what's wrong. You definitely want to know what's wrong with your moneymaker, right? I mean, you really want to know what's the problem. And I feel as – you know, this was trying to remedy that.
All right, so that is what the team would love for you to think, right? Minor, cleanup, all terms, arthroscopic. Let's be very specific in the type of surgery it was, because they're going to put a camera in you rather than completely pull you open and look at what's down in there. But so I was like, all right, well, let me Google arthroscopic shoulder surgery and just see, like, kind of overall what the procedure can and is. And I was, all right, so they do those things, all true. You put the scope in, you look around, but they can repair labrums. They can repair rotator cuffs. They can repair tendons. They can do all types of stuff. So if that terminology alone is enough to dissuade me or to make me feel comfortable, I am not buying that entirely. Not saying there's anything wrong, but what does it mean to clean up trash, to clean out his shoulder? What does that truly mean? Is there like trash? Like, is there a Diet Pepsi can floating around in there? Like, what did they do last time? And what has Jordan and what Jordan Rodriguez has continued to report on this story from the Charlotte Observer is that structurally everything seems to be okay with Cam. So like what you're kind of leaning towards, an exploratory surgery is, I think, is a valid kind of jump or leap or whatever you would say, association. But at the same time, what are you cleaning out of there? This isn't guaranteed to be minor, is my point.
Well, and another thing to think about, though, and you even kind of led with this, is as a $1 billion organization, they're trying to get out in front of this and be the ones to drop the news. Well, I think that if they were doing something even more advanced than just looking around and doing some basic cleanup, I have no idea how they would even be able to keep that under wraps, you know? That's so much of a big deal. And, you know, we even have some videos of Cam Newton that dropped today on his Instagram, and he's not wearing a brace or a sling on the shoulder. The man looks like he's all right, and as though he's in good form. So I don't know. I do sort of feel that at this point right now, it really is kind of exploratory, just looking at what's there, what might be damaged, and if they need to take any further action later on down the road, which we don't know what they found really. So hopefully not.
Well, look at this. Susan Deans with a big donation to the show. Thank you very much with the super chat. We appreciate that.
That's
keep
how
pounding.
you're doing YouTube, Susan. I see you. That's
she
awesome.
came there. She's making a splash on YouTube right away. All right, so
this is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Love it.
Continuing to build on this. So Dr. Chow, you can follow him at ProFootballDoc on Twitter. Dr. Chow has been on this podcast before. He's a former team doctor for the San Diego Chargers. And now he not only practices as a doctor, but he writes and has a podcast from the perspective of a doctor and looking at injuries and just answering and giving a ton of insight to fans like us on just some of the things that go into these types of injuries, into these types of rehabilitation programs, as well as just kind of making us familiar with the terminology. So we had him on after Cam Newton's original surgery in 2017. Like you said, that was later on. I saw Dr. Chow, he put out a tweet asking for questions on his podcast about, what are you guys interested in injury related in the league? And I said, thoughts on Cam Newton. I tweeted him. They tweeted me back. So they integrated this into the show. And I just said, thoughts on Cam Newton and at the fact that it was the team doctor that did the surgery rather than a specialist. Is that make us feel comfortable with the terminology of arthroscopic surgery? That idea that this is by nature minor because it's done with a camera. Here is Dr. Chow on his podcast. You can follow him at ProFootballDoc addressing these questions right here.
As far as news around the league, Cam Newton was announced to have shoulder surgery. That is what we talked about all along. By all reports, it's labeled as minor. Don't be fooled. Just because it's arthroscopic with a scope doesn't mean it is minor. After all, Andrew Luck's surgery was done by a scope, and obviously he missed all of the previous season. Obviously, he came back well this year. So we'll have to see how minor it was. Likely was rotator cuff related again. The report was it was a cleanup. I understand he had a March 2017 throwing shoulder surgery, and indeed there would have been a cleanup with that rotator cuff surgery as well. So I'd be curious to see what the reason is for the cleanup and what is bothering him. Hopefully, a very good sign is that he was seen, or he posted a picture of him leaving the surgery center where he did not even have a sling on. So hopefully that means that there's a very quick recovery and this can be behind him. The team doctor did the surgery this time as well as in March 2017. So it doesn't seem like there was a bad result or hard feelings from Cam on what happened in the last surgery. So let's hope this fixes his issue and we can have Cam back for OTAs and all of next season, and we'll see. One thing I'd be curious about is I have usually seen Cam go to Super Bowls, and if he comes to Atlanta and is without a sling and so forth, still, then I think it's a good sign for a quick recovery.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want a good sign, here it is.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Cam Newton here. And if you guys have been following me on my social media, you know that I'm excited to open up my cigar lounge this weekend, Fellowship. And I wanted to make this video to kind of give you guys some insight of what to expect. Pretty much, this is going to be the ultimate culinary experience where Friday we'll have the tag, the art of smoking, where everything from foods to everything will be smoked. Saturday is Welcome to the 404, where we'll have Southern cuisine at its finest. And obviously for the big game on Sunday, we'll have the ultimate tailgating experience. I'm excited because each and every night, you can guarantee the beats and the music will be coming from no other than Beats by Dre. Live DJ will be on site, as well as it will be like a vibe like no other. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too, and I'll see you at Fellowship. Tickets are available at fellowshipatl.com.
So Tony Dunn, there's nothing on that shoulder, man. He seems to be, very what's the word? He's using his hands to talk for him.
Relaxed.
Yeah,
but he sure is. He sure left it on the counter for a second, didn't he? I didn't see it come up.
I didn't look at it like that.
Look, I'm excited. Cam Newton, I'm usually just stunned by his beauty when I see him. So, it's hard to just say, hey, is he faking it? That's right. But I thought when it comes to this look, people in the chat room, Josh from Mass was already onto this before we played the clip, is that the sling and could tell us how mobile or immobile he is going to be. Dr. Chow says this is an encouraging moment. And I think this is where we got to put the C3 squad on, folks, is get out there on Instagram, get out there on Twitter, and let's find a picture of Cam Newton at the Super Bowl with no sling. Let's get some evidence to verify the beliefs that we want to have. This is science, folks. We are looking for evidence that verifies our beliefs and
real
nothing else.
Investigative journalism right here is what we're talking about, you guys. So, yeah, though, I mean, listen, I think that Cam's such a cool customer. His hometown is Atlanta. I mean, I don't think that I think that if there was a sling, you would have seen some kind of indication of it by now. Which, like I said, it's hopeful. Now, again, you don't want to spit too soon, and we're talking like, oh, thank God, he might finally be okay, going forward. And then later on in a few months, you're reading that he's having another procedure done. You just don't know. It's still too early to know for sure and to have a real clear indication of what was bothering him at all. So right now, it's the phantom, man. It's we have no idea what happened or what went wrong. And I feel we're probably not going to know until after OTAs and before training camp. That's my hunch.
You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. You can follow our work on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. You can be a part of the show using the Cat Calls line. The number's 252-228-5098. Be sure to subscribe. Support us by, participating in the chat. Give them those thumbs up on Facebook and YouTube. All right, Cody, there's also been a little movement and I guess some background signing, some padding, some of the necessary movements that you got to make as an organization when you have 19 free agents, right? And we've talked about this and several times over the last couple of weeks, the amount of free agents. It's not a number we haven't heard before. It's not an unprecedented number. But 19 is not a small number either. So there's going to be some movement and a transient roster. And we've been happy about that because there needs to be some youth. There needs to be some excitement. The Panthers announced on the heels of it being announced that the Panthers will be going to England. Remember last week, everybody's excited about that they are going to sign F.A. Obata or extend him a deal for 1 year, as well as Chris Manhertz. Now, I've got to go track down the details of that. I just saw an extension or a deal reached with tight end Chris Manhertz. For me, I'm thinking this: F.A. Obata is that is some depth on a defensive line with maybe an upside that we had hoped that we need a little bit of, but at the very minimum, it's just a business move in that you're going to England. Chris Manhertz, I think, is a budget signing. So your thoughts on these two initial moves in free agency?
So one of them I love because I genuinely do feel that F.A. Obata has potential. And I think that you saw that as well, that there were a few games where when he was out there, he turned it on, I was even saying, I mean, in the few games that I saw him really come alive, I liked him way better than Wes Horton has ever been for the team, and Ron Rivera loves Wes Horton for some unbeknownst reason. So I did love that. And then, yes, there is the storyline being in London next year, playing over there, and having London's own F.A. Obata. I love that. The Chris Manhurts, dude, that just leaves a sour taste in my mouth, man.
Oh, come on. What do you got against Martinez? What do you got against Martinez?
Listen, man, we drafted a very talented young player in the 4th round, and I think you would probably agree with me on this. Greg Olsen is coming back for another year, whether you love that or hate that as a move. So why not lean on your younger talent and your Pro Bowl tight end? Why are you wasting already valuable free agent dollars on a subpar player that honestly could have been filled with a 6th round pick or an even cheaper free agent signing? I don't understand it. And it was a 2-year deal. It's not even a 1 year, so it's a little bit more than the depth move.
Have we put the number? Have you seen the number on the? Have you seen the number?
I have not seen the number.
Okay.
All I've seen is that it's a 2-year deal, and I just don't understand it, man. I don't understand why we're not falling back on our young talent. I feel we found a gem in Ian Thomas, and I don't know why we're not putting more of the load on him rather than Chris Manhurts.
I think this. All right, so I'm going to completely disagree with you on this. That I think that the idea here is that this is a budget signing. You extend the deal. It's probably going to look like somewhat like a little bit better than a veteran minimum, but you give him another $500,000 or in that guaranteed money, but you spread it out. They'll make it probably so it's really a 1-year deal where you spread the guarantee over 2 if it's a 2-year deal. What I like about this, or what I think this may indicate is that Olsen, like you said, is coming back. The Carolina Panthers have a good amount of money tied up in him. Olsen probably will not want to turn that money down. Maybe he's at least said that he is willing to try to play again if the rehabilitation goes well. Thomas, like you said, is the guy there. I think that we're excited about, but with Manhurts, what I think this does is this just rounds out the tight end position. We say this is we're going to hopefully have Olsen. Thomas will be the guy who is the number 2, if not the number 1, if there's a problem with Olsen. What are you going to do here? What are you really going to do other than this? Are you going to go into free agency and get a guy that out there, I don't know, a Cameron Brate type or something like that and spend money? Or are you going to try to go into the next year and you don't want to put another pick in the draft? I think this is a vote of confidence for Ian Thomas and at least a bet that Olsen is going to play.
Well, and I guess I kind of look at it this way. I don't know how many tight ends a normal NFL franchise has on the roster. But even still, man, there's undrafted free agents. I don't understand using money that we could be using on other more important positions of needs after you've already drafted a promising young player that a lot of teams were high on, and they were even I've even read that teams were kind of shocked that Ian Thomas fell that far. I just don't understand it. All I found is 2 years. I looked it up. I have not seen a number value connected to that contract yet, so I do not know how much it will count against our cap. But it is what it is, man. I mean, agree to disagree.
Look, maybe you're just looking at this from the wrong light, Cody. Maybe you're just looking at this from the light of that this says that we're not as excited about Ian Thomas. Maybe we should look at this as, why would you go into free agency and find somebody worse than Greg Martinez? I mean, man.
I hear you, but also you and I have talked extensively about how bad Ron Rivera is at evaluating the talent on the team.
Unbelievably bad.
Unbelievably bad. So it might be that Ian Thomas is already light years better than Manhurts, but maybe Rivera either doesn't see it or refuses to acknowledge that fact. So that's why I'm a little bit sour on that idea. I don't feel that it's an indication of what Thomas can do. But I don't know. Someone mentioned in the chat it's a depth move, and yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't hate the move, but at the same time, it's like let's let's focus on our talent that we drafted.
Maybe, though, that it's at least telling us that we're going to be looking at other areas intensively when real free agency starts out. All right, you're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. The number's 252-228-5098. It's a party. It's episode 52.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Seniors eat free agency tonight. We've got in just about 5 minutes Jerry Foley, the Giant insider, joining the C3 Panthers podcast to help us. Because, Cody, we have started a segment this week or last week, based on your cat calls initially, in many ways a cousin to that, and that is get to better know a potential free agent. We're kind of just looking at the outside. You know, we have the shadows of free agency. We don't have any light on what's actually going to happen. But I think this week what we wanted to do was talk about Landon Collins. That's what Jerry Foley will be joining us talking about. Let's go ahead and cue up Landon Collins and this discussion, Cody. Landon Collins, a name, strong safety, rangy kind of guy, 6 foot, 222 pounds coming out of college, was a guy that Mel Mayock was remarkably high on back in the day. And that instead the Panthers went, I believe it was that year with Shaq Thompson. And now we have the Shaq Thompson $9 million a year deal. Tell us a little bit, because the safety position is unresolved for Carolina and it has never been solved. Tell us a little bit about Landon Collins and how he could fit with the Carolina Panthers.
So Landon Collins actually is a very versatile player. He does a little bit of everything. His actual position is actually a free safety. I thought he was a strong safety, but when you look at his tape, he is undoubtedly a rangy free safety, and he plays the football better than I feel on par with just about any other free agency in the NFL right now. He's very instinctual, and when you have a player like Landon Collins, it allows your corners to be able to play the football, meaning they know that if they have Landon Collins behind them, that it shortens the load that they have to handle because they know that he's back there. He's fast, 6 foot, around 220 pounds, from Alabama. He was a first-round draft pick from New York. And every single New York Giant fan that I know, that I have, they all rave about Landon and his potential and what he's able to do for the Giants. And it's not unfair to say that Collins has been their best defensive player for a while now, and that's including Jason Pierre-Paul, who's now at Tampa.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, who's now at Tampa. Landon Collins has been stalwart for them, and he's been a leader in the locker room. And we know that that is something that the Carolina Panthers covet. Guys that know how to rally the troops and be a field general. And now that we no longer have Thomas Davis on the field, you know, it isn't going to hurt to have a player like Landon Collins on the Panthers at this point in time. He would be a pretty penny for us to be able to sign. But man, oh man, but I'd love to have Landon Collins. And I think everyone would, Tony.
Right now, it looks like is that it does not look at this point that I can see from overthecap.com, and we're going to ask Jerry Foley about this, is that it does not look like, it says accrued fourth season. He was technically a second round draft pick.
Yeah.
33. So what that means is that he will be entering free agency. I would say that my initial perspective on Landon Collins is that he's kind of a blue chip safety at this point. Whether he plays the strong or the free, you see that he is, like you said, a versatile piece. Now, this is complicated by a couple of factors. Number one is the Carolina Panthers signed Eric Reed to a 1-year deal this past year, and he's played pretty well. We're going to look at them in comparison a little later in the show. But also, our former GM who picked Shaq Thompson over Landon Collins is now the GM of the New York Giants. They are in a similar situation to the Carolina Panthers, sitting roughly at about $26, $27 million in cap space at this point. But the question in my mind, and that we're going to be asking Jerry, is do you believe that Dave Gettleman is going to allocate the money for a type of blue chip player that he even passed over? And Cody, before we talk to Jerry, is this even a realistic thing at this point that the Carolina Panthers go and make a splash at this point, at this position? Because this is kind of splashy. It's not flashy. It's a little splashy.
We talked about Trey Flowers last Tuesday, and even though I feel that a defensive end position would be more important for us right now, this would definitely be the splashier move for the Panthers. And something else that we have to factor into it is, what are we going to do with Eric Reed? And that's someone that we're going to talk about later on. It's two guys that are very similar in what they do, although I do believe Eric fits better at the strong safety position, even though he has had success at the free safety. Whereas, in my opinion, Landon is just a true free safety, and that's just a better fit, a better position for him. Him and Earl Thomas are going to command a lot of money this season, and I mean, it would definitely it would be a splash. But I honestly feel he is a player that makes our defense better from day one. And I truly do believe that he is a very talented player. And everyone loves him in the locker room. And I would love to have that here in Carolina.
All right. We're about to bring in Jerry Foley from the Giant Insider to help us get a little bit more insight and to see where Landon Collins fits into this situation. You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We're part of the Overtime Network, and every Tuesday night we chop up the latest news and opinions from the fan perspective. Jerry from the Giant Insider, how you doing this evening?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know Cody we are on different sides of the fence at times about Dave Gettleman, so we can't wait to hear your perspective on that. But my name's Tony Dunn. Let me go ahead and tell you this, or ask you this. Where do you see Landon Collins at this point? Free agency approaching. The New York Giants, from what I can see, have about $26 million in cap space. Where do you see them as him as a priority in free agency for the New York Giants?
As far as guys they're going to retain, I think he's number one. I think he's their top priority. Whether they franchise him or sign him to like a 4-year deal, $9 million per, $10 million per, whatever the market's going to dictate. He's really a cornerstone of their defense and a cornerstone of their team. He just turned 25 years old. Yeah, Gettleman didn't pick him, but it's one of the picks that Jerry Reese actually got right over the last 6 to 7 years. So I think he's their top priority as far as free agents go. There's a lot of guys they're going to let go. But, it's funny because the Giants are a team where they overturned about 30 guys this year, and they have a lot more free agents, or a lot more, I guess, veterans that are getting paid a lot of money that they can get some cap relief. But the more you release, the more you have to backfill. So Collins is one of the guys that they want to build around. And the knock on Collins is his coverage more than his tackling. His tackling's phenomenal. And a lot of fans, a lot of in the media have said he should play in the box. And, then this year his tackling fell off a bit. And if you watch the Carolina game, he missed a few tackles early on in that game. But when you watch the Tennessee Titans game at MetLife, Collins didn't play, and you saw how much that secondary struggled with him out of the game. So he's a young guy. The franchise looks at him very highly. Ownership looks at him highly. He is beloved there. So I'd be stunned if the Giants don't re-sign him.
Well, Jerry, let me pose this question to you. A lot of times, and I said this, I want your opinion on this as well. Yeah. I seem to believe that Collins has probably been the best player on defense that the Giants have had for a while now, including, Jason Pierre-Paul. I mean, he has been a stalwart member of that defense, and he's been a fixture there for a while. Fans of the Panthers this season even said that Luke Kuechly had a down season, and a lot of people kind of think that's because, well, when you're not playing with too much, when you're the only star on the defense, it tends to struggle, and even your performance tends to go down. So how much do you think Landon Collins, his performance drop-off against certain teams is a product of him kind of having to do a lot in that backfield, especially after David Gettleman shipped off Eli Apple to New Orleans.
Yeah, I think he's out of position. I think the Giants have him listed at free safety. I think he's a natural strong safety. I think if you had a better safety next to him, you'd really see how well he played. In 2016, in 15, the year he was drafted, he struggled. Then 2016, I thought he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I know they gave it to Khalil Mack, who was awesome, but I thought he had the best year of anyone on the defensive side in the NFL. And then in 2017, he sprained his ankle early on, and then he had, I think it was a forearm or wrist injury late in the season. This year he hurt his shoulder. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at that defense, and it's depleted. It was one of the worst defenses in the league. So he's back there trying to do way too much. And you have Jack Rabbit Jenkins on the at one corner. Then the other corner was B.W. Webb, right? Like you said, they traded Eli Apple. Curtis Riley's another the other safety that was playing with Collins, and he's one of the worst in the league. He's a free agent, and I think if a team wants him, they're going to be able to get him. There's no way the Giants are re-signing him. So, Landon Collins, he's never really been next to that, I would even say average to above average safety alongside of him. I mean, they drafted Darian Thompson a couple years ago. He didn't pan out, and Riley was someone they put in this year. And, yeah, like you said, man, he's all they have really, especially in deep in the secondary outside of Jenkins. So he's been the MVP of the defense for the few years now.
Janoris Jenkins, he's 30 years old at this point. He had a slow start last season, and then as well as I believe there was a compensatory pick in the third round that you guys got, and I cannot remember his name.
Sam Beal.
So right now is that it's Jenkins, and really Beal is the guy that I think they seem to be banking on. I think what you're right now indicating is that even despite whether Landon Collins is kind of a blue chip player or a free agency kind of a guy that wants to see this out, the Giants can't really afford to lose that many pieces and have some question marks there alongside of him. But at the same time, this is Dave Gettleman, who also let go of Josh Norman, who had a franchise tag on him, and then drafted 3 rookie corners late and tried to piecemeal it together. He's never paid a safety at this point. So let's go to Dave Gettleman. Is a guy that when he was here, so charismatic, so fun and media friendly to the fans, is that we embraced him. We were so happy while he was here. But then you look back at those drafts and problems. Where are you guys at? Dave Gettleman had some health problems. Where are you sitting? Where's Dave Gettleman sitting here going into his second year as GM for the New York Giants?
When the last regime was so bad, I mean, this was kind of a layup for Gettleman, right? So Jerry Reese and Mark Ross drove the Giants into the ground by really just making the draft a mockery for about 6 or 7 years, where they didn't build anything in the trenches. It was all skill position players, reaches like DeMontre Moore. I could go on and on with all the draft picks over the years that haven't panned out, that were good athletes but really weren't good football players. So when Gettleman comes in, it's like he's the savior by default. And he made some weird moves in free agency, man. He brought in Jonathan Stewart, and that was more of a locker room kind of presence to try and teach Saquon Barkley how to be a professional, but he really didn't have anything left. He brought in Patrick Omame from Jacksonville, who made Eric Flowers look like Anthony Munoz, for God's sake. So, he made some weird free agency moves, but the draft he had was, I thought, phenomenal. He drafted Saquon Barkley, number 2, Will Hernandez, who's turning into a very good guard, B.J. Hill, Lorenzo Carter. There was a lot of guys that I give him an AA- for his first draft. And then in free agency, he also ended up bringing in guys like Mike Thomas, who did pan out, and Jamon Brown towards the end of the season. So the jury's still out, but because of how bad Ross and Reese were, I think most Giant fans like Gettleman. I think the proof's going to be, what does he do this year to kind of get this team to 9-7 and at least contending for the playoffs, or even 8-8 is not going to cut it. Giant fans are growing tired of just trying to improve. So 3-3 to 5-11, he's going to have to make a jump this year for Giant fans to truly embrace him. But so far, I think most fans give him a B- as GM when you take into account free agency and the draft.
And you kind of alluded to it too, after the mess of the roster that he had to work with, and then after 1 year, there's kind of only so much that he can do And it does seem like Saquon Barkley was a home run pick. As something of a draft junkie myself, I know just about every player that was drafted by Dave for the Giants last year. I also think that it was a nice draft for Dave. One of the things, Panther fans are up and down on Dave, because he had a lot of bad picks for us. And then he also had some real gems that he added to the team. But one of the things I'll always miss about Dave Gettleman is whenever you listen to a press conference of his, you actually felt that he was being honest with you and he had something to say, that he had a methodology for building a football team that kind of got people to drink the Kool-Aid, so to say. How confident are you right now in Gettleman moving forward? And do you think Giants fans are happy with him as the general manager overall?
I think for the most part they are. Like I said, he did some weird things early on that, Giant fans still talk about, especially on Twitter.
Well, he did have cancer at that point, and
right,
I mean,
right.
Like he was getting sick, and not that that's an excuse for the.
Yeah,
the
no,
thing.
that's fair, and that's fair.
Like it was a complicated beginning.
Yeah, and he overturned, like I said, I think it was 33 guys by opening day from last year. I mean, that just shows you how bad the roster
He's a
was.
hatchet man.
Yeah, and he should have been because they deserved it. I mean, there were guys on this team that had, Carl Banks is the color analyst for the Giants, and he says these guys were on scholarship, and he's right. There were too many guys there for too long that didn't really have to perform. So Giant fans like that aspect of it. I think going forward, the big question is going to be, and they're in a unique situation because do they or don't they, right, at quarterback? Does Gettleman like enough? Does Gettleman like any of these guys enough? Haskins, Murray, Daniel Jones, Greer, to take either in the first round, in the second round, or to trade up in the first round if he feels like he has to do that? Or does he roll the dice with Manning one more year and try to build the right side of that line and protect him and maybe add a Funchess type? The Giants are lacking a big over-the-middle receiver. They have Ingram, but the receivers are Odell, Shepard. They're all on the smaller side. So I think this year is going to be the proof will be in the pudding with Dave Gettleman. But I think Giant fans realize how bad the roster was, so they're going to give him a kind of a 1-year grace period. But the honeymoon is over. But he is engaging, right? I mean, he's engaging with the media.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's so charismatic.
You feel like he's talking to you, right? I mean, he gets the whole. He had a history with the Giants, so he gets the whole, lack of a better word, the history and the aura of the Giants fan and what that means to them. So he wants to build the line and the defensive line and bring back that the defenses of the past for the Giants that everyone's kind of longing for. And like I said, man, the skill positions were drafted far too often under Jerry Reese. So he had his work cut out for him. The line was one of the worst. There was no pass rush. So going forward, this draft, Giants have a lot of draft picks, and a lot of it's going to be used in the trenches. So,
and
you guys can definitely have Devin Funchess because he's a free agent, and the Panthers right now look like they are done with him. One of the things, though, is that I'm from Eastern North Carolina. My mom is actually from Queens, but I was born here in the South, so I'm a Southerner. We're attached to this team. There is Dave Gettleman comes in here in 2013 after Jerry Richardson fires Marty Herney in this. He's just like, well, it's time to move on. He brings in David Gettleman to be the axe man, the hatchet man when we were in salary cap hell at this moment. There's a lot of things that are going into the team at that time. He comes in here, he cuts, he makes a lot of tough decisions. He's able to bring in a lot of kind of piecemeal guys. At the same time, there was a kind of reservation about the Yankee coming to the South, the carpetbagger, right? At this moment, people were expecting him to be this kind of slick guy. And he was so abrasively honest that he ingratiated himself with the fans that we liked him so much at that point. But when you look at that draft, how can you miss when you got Saquon Barkley and Hernandez? He did some of those tough things for Carolina, but at the same time, he had some in retrospect, some things that he was learning. It looks like now he's at his next level of the career. So with all of that in perspective, the kind of my last question, I have Cody's got one more, and that is, what do you think he should do, and what do you expect him to do at that quarterback position?
It's a tough one, man. Because there's some veterans you can grab. I think they should. I think what he has to do is look at all the guys coming out, find the guy he likes the best that he thinks fits the Giants, fits Pat Shurmur, and you consult Pat Shurmur too, right? He's the quote unquote quarterback whisperer. So Manning's numbers were good despite the Giants' record. I think you got to work with Shurmur and say, which one do you want, and then go get him. And whether that means staying pat at 6 or moving up, they have to move on from Eli Manning. He's 38 years old. Whether you
and
do
he's
it
awful.
Well, I mean, the numbers were okay, but a lot of it was late in games, right? Like he threw for 4,200 yards. His completion percentage was high, and you gave him the premier weapon at running back, basically, I think. The offensive line early on was bad, but you have to move on. It's time, right? So whether it's midseason next year, whether it's the first game or, towards the end, right? Towards the end of next year, you have to start bringing in someone new. So his job, I think his job number one is going to be bringing in the next quarterback, whether he thinks, like I said, it's Haskins, Murray, Daniel Jones, whoever it is, you got to get him in here.
Do you have an affinity towards any one of the quarterbacks in this draft?
Yeah, I unapologetically like Haskins. Jersey boy wants to play for the Giants. Watched a few things of him on YouTube where he's breaking down defenses. Very bright kid, strong arm, not crazy mobile, but pocket mobile, which is what Eli used to be. That's all I want. I just want a guy who can move around in the pocket. So if I had to choose any of them, I like Haskins the best.
And, he's not afraid of contact, too.
Right.
I wrote a scouting report for drafttech.com, shameless plug, about Dwayne Haskins. And I think that he is absolutely awesome. I mean, if you look at the numbers that he was able to put up for Ohio State, he legitimately has one of the cleanest deep ball passes I've seen of a quarterback coming out in such a long time. He's not afraid of pressure. And the thing that's rare about Dwayne, he'll go through his progressions on a level that you see veterans do. Yeah. He will go from the X, the Y, the Z, and then back, and then just launch a missile. I personally, if I'm Dave Gettleman, I'm doing whatever I have to do to get Dwayne Haskins in a Giants outfit.
Yeah, I don't care if they trade up, but they trade a first-round pick next year. If they do something like they did for Eli to get him, I like him a lot. He's the guy I would want. Like you said, man, you watch him watching film, and he breaks it down to the level of you would think he's Peyton Manning. And he played the best in the biggest games. He played great in the Rose Bowl. He played great against Michigan. So that's what you want in your quarterback. You want a guy who rises to the occasion. And like I said, man, there's something to being local and wanting to play for the Giants. He's even said it. So that's the guy I would go get if I'm Gettleman.
Absolutely.
All right, Jerry, thank you so much. Jerry Foley. Jerry, tell them where they can find your work going forward.
Sure. Twitter account is @GiantInsider. And then we have a newspaper, www.thegiantinsider.com, or you can go to magster.com for a digital subscription. That's magzter.com.
Jerry, thanks a ton for joining us, especially on this short notice. We're going to catch up with you again as we go forward because we'll be watching Dave Gettleman. That's something we're curious about. We're curious about those Yankees.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks a lot. Cody, that's Jerry Foley, the Giant Insider, giving us some insider insight into Landon Collins as a potential free agent. Sounds like it's going to take a lot to pry him away from their scheme going forward.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
But we're looking at we're really looking at shadows of free agency at this point. We're trying to gauge, Cody, where do you see the Panthers going, or where could this be? Who are some of the guys that are definitely hit free agency and could be real decision points? And that leads us to this, is that while we are talking about Landon Collins, we really have been thinking about Eric Reed. And what we need to ask is, how do you compare Eric Reed to the field and Landon Collins being at the top of that field?
I personally believe that for not having OTAs and for not having a full training camp, that Eric came in and he did a lot of good work for us. He wasn't perfect, but damn, no one on our team was this year. Even our best players had ups and downs.
He was pretty darn good. He was good. He was good after being a year off of football.
He played well
on short notice.
And after, you see him fist bumping Luke right there. It seems that as time went on, he really started to gel with the team and became a part of our defensive unit, and that's important. I do like the versatility. He may not be the best free safety in the world, but he has the ability to play.
He's another guy that's as strong. Both of these guys are guys that are probably just better suited to play strong safety and have a really good guy beside him. And how dominant would that be?
Sure, but even if he's not the best at the free safety position, even knowing that he has the ability to play there, it allows you some versatility. So if you draft an Eric Reed, you know that, in a pinch, you have the ability to put him wherever you need to put him on the field. And I think that's important for us. We just showed a clip of him making an in-space tackle on Alvin Kamara. And that's not something a lot of guys are able to do, But Eric Reed does it well, and he does it effectively. I personally, I want to sign Eric, man. I want to let him have another full year to be able to be a part of what we're doing and for him to be able to showcase the best of his talents, because I genuinely don't feel that we've seen the best of him yet.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Man, you got to be, I think, pleased at the very least at what Eric Reed was able to come in and do for the team. He positively contributed at a position that the Panthers have not had an answer or a long-term answer, have always tried to kind of plug the holes on the ship with. If you think of Roman Harper, a plug, right. Mike Minter, a plug, trying to make sure that the bones of the ship with that defensive, with those linebackers, and in past years, that defensive front, that was the real strength in the bones of the ship. But now, here's the thing, is that Eric Reed is a big-ass boy. He looks like a bionic man. He looks like he looks like one of those guys that really was a Shaq Thompson-type player 5 or 6 years ago. It's like, gosh, you are a safety athleticism, but damn, you got a linebacker. You're big. Big boy, right? And he's a hard hitter. What I like about Eric Reed at this point is he comes in, you're talking about him being a plug into the ship at that point. We're leaking water as Denoris Cersei goes down because of concussion. He's had all of this firestorm around him that kept him out of the game, and he was an adequate plug. Now, though, I think if you signed him, he could be a real plank in that ship, not just a Band-Aid or a plug or a patch, but somebody who is Pro Bowl caliber, which may come at a slightly discounted price because you did not see as insanely great season from him. And the Panthers were the team that signed him. Yeah. So I think that this is actually kind of a safe move to make for the Carolina Panthers. I don't think Eric Reed has done enough either to command some absurd amount of money. Did I say Mike Minter? I meant Mike Mitchell. Thank you, Ken.
And, Eric even came out and said that there were other teams that offered him a contract, but the Panthers offered him more. So we showed him at one point that, we wanted his talent and we wanted it here, and we were willing to put our money where our mouth was in order to be able to prove it. I think you're right. I don't think he's going to command the high-dollar Earl Thomas, Landon Collins kind of money.
Yeah, Landon Collins would be more expensive, correct?
Yeah, he would definitely be more expensive. I think so. I think that Landon Collins
looking for maybe a year or two more in the deal, maybe.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not mad if we sign Eric for 2 or 3 years. It doesn't have to be a 5 year. It'd be nice, but it doesn't have to be a long-term deal. I think Eric fits us perfect. And if we can find someone to put next to him, the safety position is done. We don't have to focus that with the draft coming up in April, and we can fill more pressing holes and needs that are on the team right now. I really think that Eric is going to end up being a Panther. I'm very confident that he will play for us next year.
Lee Trotter on YouTube says this: I would not overpay for Reed because no one else is going to sign him because of the kneeling. Now,
yeah, that's not a bad thing.
I actually think this continues to go into why I think Eric Reed would be a great signing. And not because I think we're going to get a very fair price for him. And the reason being is this. First, we have a little history with him because we signed him last year, right? So there is a relationship already somewhat established. Ron Rivera has echoed over and over how he has been a positive contributor to the defense, how he has believed he would like to have him back. At the same time, the kneeling stuff or whatever it is has completely blown over. It was a non-story after the first couple of weeks. And if anything, the story shifted from the kneeling to him being tested every week after games. So here's where I think where it may be now you have a relationship established. You have a team that's willing to enter into negotiations fairly with you and you fairly with them. And then the last component is that if he went to another franchise, Cody, he would actually have to relive the kneeling and all of that. Now he can it's in the past almost. That was something in that last season. If anything, it's about the P test. And now going forward, he doesn't have to go through that if he went to another organization. I think there's some forces, like you said, that are attracting him, that are pulling him to Carolina, as well as pushing Carolina to maybe give him a 2 or 3 year deal, like you're saying.
Yeah, and a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned are why I am confident that he will be a Panther next season. We have the familiarity. He's been in our locker room. He's been around our players. The owner is comfortable with all the press that came along with Eric Reed and the kneeling for the anthem, which, by the way, I didn't even find there was even much of. There was a few articles on Twitter or whatever, but I never felt like there was some overblown giant ordeal about Eric Reed kneeling and the Carolina fans making a big deal out of it. So
no, it was like 2 seconds. Yeah. It blew over. It actually showed exactly why the NFL handled everything poorly.
Yes.
The NFL made all of this a big issue. They should have let it blow over. It blew over in Carolina. No need to go and pick up the rug and see what dirt's underneath it in another town.
Right. And, I feel as though the fact that we were able to pick him up and that we were able to sign him when, frankly, a bunch of teams weren't even willing to do so, I kind of hope that puts us out in front, and I think it does. And as I said, I do believe that Eric Reed will probably want to stay here next year, I'm hoping, and I'm hoping that we make that happen.
All right, so we want to hear your thoughts. You can call into the Cat Calls line. The number is 252-228-5098. Landon Collins, Eric Reed, potential free agent decisions for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. And right now we are kind of on the outside looking. We're on the distant outskirts of free agency and even more distant in the draft. But we got on the trail, Cody. The draft is one of those things is that every moment you think it's so far away, and then catch a whiff of something that is exciting and interesting. And anything is more interesting than the Pro Bowl. Let's talk about the Senior Bowl. Cody, you're the draft guy. Tell us what went down in, I believe it was Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah, Mobile, Alabama, the Reese's Senior Bowl. It's something that I, as a draft nerd, I look forward to every year. Because, look, Baker Mayfield played there. Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott. You're talking about legitimate first-round prospects playing the Senior Bowl. So I love it, man, because especially when you're looking at the Panthers and you know that we need defensive line help, we need offensive line help. I mean, you're looking at these players to be able to come in and be able to help us do just that and be dominant in the trenches again. So today, I have chosen to highlight a few different players that I feel are going to help us out right now and who might be some good picks for us, maybe even in the second, third, potentially even some first-round picks that we have here, man. So are you ready, Tony?
Yeah, I want to know what you saw. Some of the guys that you saw were rising and falling, some of the standouts. And then my question to you at the end of all of this will be, do these clips alone give us any added information, or are they just fodder for us to talk about?
All right. So, well, then let's just jump into it, man. The first player that we're going to be looking at is 6'6", 275-pound, defensive end out of Texas, Charles Omenihu in orange right there on the edge. Just blows up the line of scrimmage into the backfield. He's a dominant defensive end, and he had a standout Senior Bowl and Senior Bowl practices. I mean, he is brutal at the point of attack, and everyone was raving about my man. This is a bull rush from practices that happened on Tuesday. Just bowled over.
Tell me this man's name again.
Charles Omenihu. He is a defensive end out of Texas, and he's a bad man.
It's mad when it's like slightly erotic when a man just bowls over. Man, you're like, whoa. Oh my.
And the player that he did that to is Bo. I know I'm going to mess up the name. Benchweiler, who is a.
He caught him sleeping though, man. Boy, he just was all on his heels. Play it one more time. I want to see it again. Play it one more time. Oh God.
The
Poor
drills
fella.
definitely favor the defensive line over the offensive line, just because of the nature of the position. But
yeah, because they don't got to worry about what's going to happen in the play.
Yeah, but look, he definitely showed up.
Poor fella.
Played well. He definitely played well. So now we're going to move to the offensive line and show you the left tackle out of USC, Southern California, Chuma Edoga, 6'5", 315 pounds. Look at the left tackle on this play. Boom. Puts the defensive end, and that was Charles Omenihu, by the way, that he was going up against. Puts him on the ground. He's mobile for a big man. He's powerful, and he's agile, and he's dominant at the point of attack. And listen, man, I'm tired of having to worry about Cam Newton's blind side. The man is powerful. Now, offensive line, you have to know what you're looking at. It's not the most fun tape to watch, but it's important, and it's something that we need to have more of.
Where do you see a guy like this going in the draft?
In my opinion, somewhere
around. I know it's far out, but these are guys that we're interested in. I mean, are we all picking all number one type draft pick players at this point, or are these guys that are legitimate, maybe targets later in mid rounds?
I've made it a point to highlight some players that I believe will be available anywhere between the third and the fifth round, and these players are going to try and show themselves off well at the combine coming up, and they're going to try and improve their draft stock. And these are players that are in play for us. I also want to pinpoint Nate Davis, the left guard on this play, played in the gold helmet. It's from UNC Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, looking good.
From UNC Charlotte, man, Queen City. And that would be another player that had a very good practice. And he's another player to look out for. But look, we all have more fun watching defense. So let's watch another defensive player. This is Jonathan Ledbetter out of Georgia. He's a defensive end. And, well, come on, I'll just show you. Snatch, rip, boom, into the backfield.
Oh, look at that. 3 moves in there. That was 3 moves.
snatch,
Right.
rip, pressure into the quarterback's face. Jonathan Ledbetter is a powerful defensive end. He was a great player for Georgia. And this is another guy who did well over the course of 7 days. Showed some moves to be able to win, had a counter swipe move, just absolute dominant at the line of attack. He's able to throw off defenders. The videos don't play too well, but yeah, that's another player that did a lot for Georgia. I mean, they're
about 6'5", 280 pounds already. The question is, where does a player like that go? You wonder. According to redandblack.com, let's see what they have to say about old Jonathan Ledbetter. 6'4", 265. This was when maybe he was coming in. This is from August 2014. He was 6'4", 265 when 4 years ago. Ledbetter is growing into a big man's body. That's what I would say. Cody, where is a guy like this on people's radar at this point?
He's not a day one prospect just because the numbers weren't there for him. But, I honestly believe he will fit better with us. If we stay as a 4-3 defense, I like him as a hand in the dirt defensive end. That I feel that's what he's made to do. He's a powerful guy, long, and he has the moves to back it up. You saw that snatch and rip, and he's fast with it. He's grabbing the cloth of the jersey of the opposing guard and tackles, and he's just a powerful man. And players like that have so much upside that you're talking about players that they make you better day one. And the Panthers are in desperate need of a player just like that.
Any baggage with any of these guys?
That I don't know. None of them have anything that has popped up on my radar as of yet. But no, I mean, nothing that I've uncovered yet. I do want to we have two more players that we need to get through. One of them is another offensive tackle, Caleb McGarry out of Washington. And the player you're about to see him face off with is Zach Allen out of Boston College. This is the guy I wanted to ask you about, Zach Allen. So I'm interested in seeing someone go against him. Well, I'll let you look. Just puts him in the dirt. Caleb, I'll play that again for you. Caleb is the right tackle on the play and put Zach Allen down. And Zach Allen is another player that people were expecting a lot out of and did not have a good week down in Mobile.
Really?
Yeah, not at all. I mean,
he was on Bucky Brooks' Move the Sticks podcast. I got to hear a little bit from him. Yeah. Very, very well-spoken individual who knows how to speak about football very well. You're hearing about some of the things that he thinks he does well. He talks about power being the big part of his game. I went and just looked at his YouTube highlights, and immediately he's a big boy that likes to win on that initial, that punch, it seems like. In that video you just showed, Cody, was a bigger boy who could handle it.
Yeah, Caleb is 6'8".
300, I had no idea.
325 pounds. Yeah, it's hard to outmuscle.
Try to win power with that, baby.
Yeah, you're not doing it.
That's Caleb, I didn't even know any of this. Look at that. It looked choreographed.
Yeah, and another thing about Zach Allen, before we play this other Caleb clip, is that he really doesn't have a position. He's too large, in my opinion, to play defensive end, but not big enough for defensive tackle. And
he's almost not fast enough to be defensive end.
He's more of a run stuffer.
Quick.
He's more of a run stuffer. He's more of a run stuffer than anything else. So that's why I'm not comfortable using anything more than a third-round pick on Zach Allen. Other teams are going to enjoy the upside of him potentially, but I don't know. As of right now, I'm not too high on him.
Might be a player that drops though, and you get a value pick. You hear a lot of guys in the third and fourth round becoming something later on. So it doesn't mean they're bad. Just means that you're unsure of how certain they are.
Yeah. We have one more of this monster, Caleb. Look, I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, look at this. Oh,
God. He is so big.
Is he
going to play? He ain't going to play tackle in the NFL, is he?
Yes, he is. Hell, yes, he is. I don't want him anywhere else.
Tell me this guy's name again.
Caleb McGarry out of Washington State.
Y'all write it down. Caleb McGarry, Washington State. We got to watch this big old boy.
Washington, rather. There's Washington State, and then there's Washington. And, yeah, another thing to think of is I like Moulton kind of at the right side or the left side. And I feel this is another player that has potential on both sides of the football, on both sides of the line, left and right. So we have one more player, and people who follow this might have heard the name. Is Montez Sweat, defensive end out of Mississippi State. And my Lord, put the boom on it. Montez Sweat has the longest measured arm length out of any player since the combine started over 9 years.
What in
has
the
a
world?
7-foot wingspan and is absolutely powerful. Dude, his bend isn't the best, but the power that he has at the point of attack, I mean, come on, that's unreal. Another thing that a defensive end has to be able to do is set the edge. You're not allowed to run the football on your defensive ends. So you want a man that does this. That's him on the right, and just boom, right on the running back. Doesn't let him move.
Play that one more time.
Yeah,
I need to see that again. I feel like this is a player, Cody, that people were up and down on. Like, they want to be like he's the number one prospect, but then they want to find, or not number one. I don't know what the rankings are, but they wanted to find something wrong with him. To me, it looks like one of these is that we can nitpick on these moments. He looks like a big badass football player to me. That looks like he can handle himself. He looks quick enough. He looks sound enough. I don't see the negatives other than the ones that we kind of need to manufacture to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah, and the thing with Montez is that he weighed in at 252 pounds. So
all right, there we go. We need him a little heavier.
Yeah, we need him a little heavier, but he's 6'6". So he has the frame to be able to put on more mass. He's a very physical player. Like I said, his bend for a defensive end isn't the best, but there's so many other things that he does well. Out of all the players that I've shown you, right now Montez Sweat has the most first-round buzz out of all the players I've shown you. I've seen him, in the top 20, sometimes even the top 10, depending on who's picking. So Montez Sweat is a player that would be available for us to pick. In my mind, I think he'll be sitting there for us. So he's definitely a player that the Panthers are going to have their eyes on.
P. Thomas in the YouTube chat has a couple of good comments. He says Farrell has all the tools, and second, Sweat. What did you say his name? I mean, I just want to call him Sweet, like Sweet Tea, Sweat Tea. Sweat Tea is a tweener, he said. P. Thomas says, so the question going back is, there's this news about the 3-4 defensive change, guys that making into the system that is. Farrell being the blue chip guy, it sounds like everybody's excited about him.
Yeah.
How do you see Sweat in the context of being a tweener? And does that make you lean either way on what he is meant to do in the long term as a defensive player in the NFL?
I disagree with Pete Thomas a little bit. I think the reason why you might say that he's a tweener, listen, he doesn't weigh enough, but it hasn't hampered him yet in college. I've looked at a lot of his film. He doesn't get hung up a lot, so it's not as if he's constantly being out-muscled by opposing offensive tackles. And listen, I want to make this clear. He will not be an outside linebacker in the NFL. He does not have the mobility to do that. He is a hand-in-the-dirt player. That's where he's going to make his money. So him being physical is how he is going to continue to be successful. He is has the potential to be a powerful run stuffer. And if you add some more moves to him, I honestly think he might be a dominant pass rushing defensive end. So I'm high on him. I'm higher on him now than I was. And I wasn't very high on him before. So he's definitely a player to look out for.
Some buzz around Kelvin Harmon out of NC State, wide receiver, I saw on Twitter. I don't follow it a ton. Any thoughts on him? Looks like he has a real NFL body, 6'3", 215 pounds, I guess. A lot of body control from some of the things that people have been posting. Any thoughts on him coming out after this week or weekend or whatever you call it?
Kelvin Harmon was easily the best receiver for NC State. He isn't as fast as I would want a receiver for us to be, but he has sure hands. And, I kind of feel as though he would be a better Devin Funchess. There are some players that I like better at the wide receiver position. But if Kelvin Harmon is there, I believe he's around 6'1". If Harmon is there, I'm not mad at that as a second or even a third round pick. I do feel a lot of the receivers are going to fall in this draft just because there's so many defensive talents coming out at defensive tackle and defensive end. There's just a lot of them. You might not see a safety in the first round this year. So that's beneficial for us because if we're high on one, then that means in the later rounds, if they're sitting there and we're not going to re-sign Devin Funchess, well, hey, why not pick them up?
All right. Thanks, Cody, for the updates from the Senior Bowl. Will be it kind of shows you we're already hot on the trail. We're hungry for any news. You'll be seeing us posting things about meetings with the Carolina Panthers. Follow it. There's some people on Twitter that watch this remarkably, and they know like if your cousin has been in the same city as a defensive coach for the Carolina Panthers. So anytime we see that, I believe it's Gene Farrell that does this the best, is that we're going to be retweeting all of that, trying to update you on the podcast of what it looks like for the Carolina Panthers, not only for free agency, but also the drafts, because we're hungry. We're hungry for Panther news, and who gives a crap about the Patriots in the Super Bowl again? You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. The number is 252-228-5098, where we chop up every week the latest Panthers news and opinions. Cody, we're going to go ahead and get into the cat calls and see what I think we only got one tonight.
On cat calling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in the snow? Who's that kid that can use one?
We'll get to the call, Tony.
Hey, everybody. This is G. Cavassier.
What's up, G?
It's been a while. Hey, the Super Bowl is this Sunday. Go Rams. So I'm going to say go Rams because I can't stand the Patriots.
Amen.
I'm going to leave it quick and simple tonight, fellas. I just need a quick answer because I have a question. Do you see us going offense in the first round or defense? Now, we all know our GM, he usually doesn't miss when it comes to them first rounders. Man.
Amen to that.
He doesn't. He usually gets that key on. So do you see us getting like a offensive lineman, or a wide receiver or a running back, which I really don't see a running back going into the top 16 this year. This is my opinion. Or do you see us going defense like a linebacker or, a defensive tackle like we need another one, or defensive end or safety or, so offense or defense within the first round for the Carolina Panthers. I'll talk to y'all later.
Cody, I want you to take this.
So if I have my way, in my mind, I want offensive line. And it's something that I've said numerous times. Is it the sexiest pick? No. Are we old at the edge rusher position? Yes. But, I mean, this whole Cam Newton saga and the shoulder, if it has not shown you that this Panthers franchise lives and dies by number one and protecting him, then I don't know what else to tell you. All the best football teams, they put offensive linemen around their quarterback. They protect their assets. Cam Newton is by far the best asset that we have on the team right now. Now, the reason why I'm hesitant to jump on what we must do in the first round is because we have free agency still to come. And you never know if we might end up signing a guard or maybe trade Flowers at the defensive end position. That's someone that we've previewed before. Depending on what we do, that depends on how we draft, or that's going to determine how we draft. If I have my way, I say it has to be either an offensive tackle or a defensive end. I want to build the trenches to be better for the Panthers, as I feel that was genuinely the position of concern this past year.
All right, I lied. There's another call there. Thanks, G. Cavassier, for that. Let's see what else you guys got on the cat call.
Hold on. I want to know what Tony Dunn has to say about this one. If you had your pick as of right now, I know it's still early, but in your mind, do you want what would be your dream pick of position in the draft?
What are we picking at, 16 again?
Yeah, 16.
I'd say defensive end.
Defensive end.
I think we would feel it a little bit quicker if it was like a lock, like if it worked immediately.
Right.
I mean, imagine if you just got it right. If you just got it right and you got the guy and he came in and he contributed, and it was all of a sudden defensive player of the year candidate, I think that we would feel that a lot more quickly, or at least we would see that on the field and translate into maybe the Panthers having a game or two difference. I think that the offensive tackle is a little bit longer of a vision. I don't know. And then here, I think the question then immediately come to my mind is do you try to go with Darrell Williams, who I saw as one, and I don't know if it was NFL.com or I think it was ESPN. They listed him as a top 25 free agent this year, coming off an injury. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe is that in my ideal world is that I want Moton to be a successful left tackle. I want Darrell Williams to be able to come back and show that he is what a lot of people saw from Pro Football Focus stats he was that year. And then we get a defensive end. I don't know how possible that is, to be honest, though. Well, that's where I'm at. Yeah. I don't know.
And you're right. And listen, the guys that I showed you, even that Caleb McGarrett dude that you've seen, I haven't seen him put in the first round at all. So, there are options. We're going to have 7 picks in the draft. There are going to be options all throughout the draft. And if you hit on them.
You know what I would rather for us to do, Cody, then, is for us to go after whoever we thought in the first and then trade up and get real high in the second and get the other guy we wanted, or the back end of instead of just trying to get 7 picks that land. Let's get 3 picks we know are going to make a difference, and a pick we hope makes a difference. And who cares about those late round picks?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I'm saying pick the offensive line and the defensive line first round. But honestly, some of my favorite picks in the first round, they're not even linemen. I would absolutely love Devin White, the linebacker out of LSU. Man, put him next to Luke. no one is going to run the football on us ever again, man. I'm telling you.
You know what a cool thing, though, is about this year is that while we're going to fixate on all these players, we're going to talk about all the needs and what you have to do in the ideal situations. Yeah. But I just want to remind that Marty Herney also picked Luke Kuechly in a year that we thought that was, at the time, a pick that was a redundancy. You had John Beeson, you had Thomas Davis. John Beeson at that point had not been finished for his career. So, you never know. Like you're saying, is that while we're eyeballing these guys as the need at that point, maybe you get that same player at 44, and that you're right. You get a guy, like you said, White.
Yeah, Devin White out of LSU.
I know Joey loves him a lot.
Yeah, he won the Dick Butkus Award this year, which is still the best name ever to say. And he's just powerful, man. He's dominant, fast, sideline to sideline. He does everything that Luke does. I mean, obviously that's a lofty comparison.
All right, here's my answer. I got my answer to your question.
Okay.
Is what do I want? I want now a starter in the first round.
A day one starter. How can you
one
not
that
want
is
that?
A starter and a contributor? Because if you think about this, looking back to our first rounds, DJ Moore, as close as probably as you get. Well, actually, Christian McCaffrey as close as you get to a day one contributor, right? Because we gave him the ball 37 times on the first quarter against the San Francisco Giants his rookie year. But with DJ Moore, we still didn't barely integrate till week 8. Started to come out a little bit at the end, but you go back, Christian McCaffrey, probably the one. It's the gem there. Go back a year before, Vernon Butler. Not even going to make the team. You go back a year before that, Shaq Thompson. Right now we're wondering, he hasn't played more than 43% of the snaps in any season defensively. Go back before that, and I believe you're back in the range of Kelvin Benjamin, who did have a great rookie year, but is barely in the NFL anymore. So not only here's my dream scenario, Cody, is a starter, a contribute, and a long-term contributor for the Carolina Panthers. That's what I want in the first round.
Best player available. If we're in the position to do it, that's what it's called, BPA. You want to be able to put yourself in a position to take the best player available and not shop hungry. I'm hoping that we're able to do that, but we don't have a ton of money, and hopefully we're able to bolster in free agency and take a Pro Bowler, man. You want someone that starts right now. I hear you. I'm on Team Tony on this one.
All right, the number is 252-228-5098. Here's the last call for tonight, but you can reach us anytime, all day at that number. Cat Calls line. We want to hear your voice, your opinion about the Carolina Panthers. Let's see what we got next, Cody.
Hey, what's up, C3? It's called D. I'm calling in. I'm been checking in and out tonight. I guess. Tony, can you work on seeing if you can get Mr. Colin Cowherd as a guest on the podcast?
I got you. No problem.
Go through your connections and see what you can do.
We're going to work on
that. Let's try to get this dude on the podcast, because you know what?
Wrote it down.
It's time I want to call him out on his shit. He's always talking crap about Cam, blah, blah, this. And then he try to changes up to what he said when you talking to him, whether personally or when you interview him. So Tony, if you can do that,
I got you.
You get your celebrity connections to hook us up. Bring Mr. Cowherd on this show, please. Please bring him so we can have a good old-fashioned talk with Mr.
Behind the woodshed with Colin Cowherd.
I will, and if you succeed in that, I will personally make sure I take the whole freaking day off so I can make the podcast, because I would love to be a part of that.
Carl D is doing push-ups in the cell every night. Get ready for him.
Cam surgery, what you think about that? How do you guys feel? Well,
I'm ready to
you,
circle
Cody,
back
since
to
you
this.
are the Cam. You are the official Cam apologist. Are you
It's a beautiful man.
Does that make you happy that he did have his surgery and everything seems like it's going smooth?
Fake news. We don't know.
You guys let me know what you think.
All propaganda.
And I'm going to get off of here.
Carl D. I love Carl D. He's fun. We got Colin Cal
the
too.
rest of the podcast.
All right. Thanks, Carl D. So I do want to circle back and just kind of, at least before we get to the ice up picks, just kind of where we start is where we end. Every week it's Cam Watch right now. And the whole point of this is that we're going to talk about free agency moves. We're going to talk about guys that we hope hit in the draft, opportunities going forward. But at the end of the day, Carl D reminds us the ultimate and central question is, what is going to happen with Cam Newton? And not only what will happen with him in the short term, but Cody, I know that some of the local media, the Charlotte media, has gotten to the point where they're asking questions. And I do think this is a legitimate question to ask, Cody, is that as Cam Newton has dealt with a shoulder issue this past year, that he has had this second surgery, but we're kind of waiting to see is that while this is an important year, the following year, I believe, is the final year of his contract. So 2020, like a presidential election, is a Cam Newton election. Let's go ahead and cue up a little quick discussion about Cam Newton and his future via local Charlotte radio.
I'm satisfied that within basically 5 weeks, this surgery happened. This allows him 3 to 4 months now to recover. This allows him to, unless there's a snag in the recovery process, be ready by late May and June. I don't know that he'll take part in OTAs, but I do think that he will be ready, it sounds like, for July when we get to training camp. And that's what matters at this point in his career for a veteran that has played 8 seasons in the NFL, has hardly missed any time. This guy is okay missing OTAs. I'm okay with him missing these OTAs. The rehab process has now started immediately. I think that this timing is absolutely spot on for the Panthers and their future plans and for Cam Newton and his long-term health. Next season is going to be a critical year for Cam because his contract is up the following season. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's a slam dunk that the Panthers extend or re-sign him at the end of that. I think they're going to need to see, can he sustain himself for 16 games?
Well, duh.
Is the shoulder healthy enough to play a full season and into the playoffs? They need to have those answers before they decide to pay him a 5-year extension at over $20 million a year into his mid to late 30s.
Well, I feel passionately about this, and I'm going to put this out to Carl D. Is right now, I would say our whole franchise lives and dies on Cam Newton's shoulder, the success of his shoulder, and I want it to be a success going forward. And right now, I don't want to think about life without Cam. I want to think about a great life with Cam going forward. I do believe this year is important, but not necessarily as important as Josh Parcell is making it out to be here. I would say that this year is important to see if he makes positive progress. But if he comes out and he can play this year and it doesn't look like it's getting worse, and then he goes out in 2020 and shows that he can deal and looks pretty strong and pretty good, I don't think there's any choice. And I don't even think it's an unthinking decision. If Cam looks like he's getting healthier and Cam continue to be healthy, his shoulder's not a long-term issue, it's clear that he is the long-term solution for the Carolina Panthers. But, I mean, I don't believe this year is the make or break year. I just want it to be a positive step forward, and I think it could and will be.
Well, I think the merit that Josh Parcell has to his argument is that basically, listen, if we're just talking about Cam Newton, the talent, and what he has demonstrated the ability to be able to do, there is no doubt that you sign Cam Newton if you know that you're getting that kind of player. If you know that Cam is still going to be able to produce those kinds of plays for you. Now, if you're talking about on a health level, if Cam Newton is still unable to throw the ball, past 15
of course.
yards.
Like, why would you be that's just a giant loss of money for him.
100%. 100%. So, yeah, I mean, 2020 is maybe the most important year of Cam Newton's entire career.
If he comes out this year and has a year that is notably improved from last year, where you look at the health and the arm strength, if you look at the arm strength after this year and you say things are getting better, I don't think there's even a question and a doubt in my mind that we need to see another year at that point. If you're confident in the rehabilitation process, I think the only question mark is, are you wary about Cam Newton's shoulder? Nothing else. Not his ability to hold up as an individual, just is the shoulder something that will be a long-term problem.
Yeah, 100%. And it's very important that we know the health of Cam Newton going forward. And I feel bad for him, man, because, I mean, let's just paint the doomsday scenario. Let's say things don't get better. I mean, his career might be over because no one's going to sign a quarterback that can't move the football effectively with his arm. Now, it's
not even going to be a problem. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine.
Think so. I think so, too. I'm
He's going to come back and blow everybody away this season. And even if we don't have enough pieces around him this season, we're going to see enough to be excited enough to know that my man in 2020 is going to he's going to be running for president of the NFL in 2020.
And I endorse him.
I am. He's got my vote. All right. So thanks. Those a great show tonight so far. We got one last segment. I think right now, will the Super Bowl be before we come back or after?
The Super Bowl was on
Monday. Is it the Monday? Is it a Sunday? It's the 4th. It's the day 3rd. It's the 3rd. February 3rd. Is that right?
Yeah, it's February 3rd.
All right, so we will not be here. I picked the Rams to win. Ken Dye messaged me on Facebook earlier today and said it's 100% chance of Patriots win in the Super Bowl. It's 100% chance that I'm cheering against them. But boy, you got to know that Tom Brady knows that this is like the final golden nail or spike. It's the golden spike that connected the Transcontinental Railroad at some point. This is like, this could cement the biggest career in sports history, arguably. And I hope the Rams spoil it. And I'm pulling for that nickel guy to blast somebody in the head.
then Nickel Roby Jones.
Yeah.
He was already talking trash on Tom Brady, saying he's not.
Blast him in the head.
Yeah, he's not what it once was. I don't know. I'll try and jinx it, and I'll just say that the Patriots are gonna win. Because why wouldn't they? It's the same old song and dance. They're the most consistent football team there is. I love Aaron Donald though. Aaron Donald's an absolute man amongst boys.
There is an opportunity where Sue and Donald could break Tom Brady in half and eat him on the field.
And I'm here for it. I want to see that. And some fire Super Bowl commercials and a lot of beer, and I'm a happy man.
All right. I'm pulling for the Rams. All right, let's go ahead and I guess that's the end. It's been a great year. It's been a fantastic year, 52 episodes, and we would be remiss if we didn't end the 52nd, the full 6th season of the C3 Panthers podcast every Tuesday, plus more, with some ice up picks here. And Cody, my ice up pick, I'm going to start tonight just because mine is pretty pedestrian, but something that has been irking me as of late. And that is people who don't say excuse me when they are the person that should say excuse me when you run into them in a place, in an aisle, particularly the grocery store, and you being that person that's trying to just be Mr. Jovial friendly to everybody, You walking down the aisle and somebody comes blasting around, and they should be the person that's saying, excuse me. And you go ahead and break the ice and be like, well, excuse me. And then them mugs go silent treatment on you and act like you were the one responsible, not just being the one polite. So to you people, particularly in the grocery store, just say, excuse me, if there's any question in your mind, if you're the person that came around the corner and got in somebody's way. Just go ahead and say, excuse me, or else we're going to start taking the road rage to the aisles of the grocery store. For you people who are too ignorant to read a room, ice up.
Ice up. Have some damn manners. How about that? To everyone with no manners, ice up. So today I am icing up a team that I genuinely do feel is on the up and up, but they're still an easy target. I'm icing up the Cleveland Browns because a report came out about all the tumult that went on behind the scenes with Sashi Brown, the former general manager, and the owner. And I'm just going to let this kind of speak for itself. At one point in time, some marketing executives wanted employees to see how fans were engaging with the Browns on social media. So they projected the Browns feed onto a giant wall at the facility. It was like broadcasting talk radio over the entire building. And one day in particular, it was worse than that. One of the marketing staffers entered search for hashtag DP for dog pound. The problem, that hashtag carries a few different meanings. And
don't play it.
is an array of porn, which was then broadcasted onto the wall in the office for over 20 minutes until an employee put a stop to it. So you're talking about the hardcore, most dirty porn imaginable is being played on the wall of a $1 billion organization, dude. Come on, man. Only the Browns are going to do some shit like this. This isn't even surprising, but come on, man. How does it take 20 minutes for someone to not know that porn, hardcore porn, is blasting on the wall for everyone to see and hear, man? Come on, to the Browns.
Well, I tell you one thing is that that's one way to turn the brown eye blue right there. Jeez Louise, is that not a rough day at the office when you're the guy who types in. And then that's one of those moments like where you lose all of your mind and you like can't think. And so you're like trying to do everything to stop it. And you're like, I just don't even know how to click X anymore. And so you're like pounding the keyboard at that moment. And then they're like, pound it. And you're like, oh God, this just got worse.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Only the Browns, man. Only the Browns.
There's a lot of layers to that joke right there.
Yeah, there is, man. Dude, my mind is dirty as there is. I've caught them all.
Whatever. Browns ice up. Good God. You know, that's another lesson in life. Actually, this is a great lesson in life, is that while Twitter is a super powerful tool, it's one of those things you better be very confident you know what you're doing on Twitter if you're going to broadcast that shit at work. Because one time I pulled up Twitter and I pulled up the tweet deck at work, and you're just like trying to show somebody a mention, and I've got like trailing hashtags or something, and some Stu Nod has retweeted something that a 17-year-old boy really was glad he retweeted, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to ruin my whole life. So you better be careful with the Twitter use at the workplace. All right, this is the C3 Panthers podcast. It was a party. It's the last show of the year. We're going to come back after this stupid Super Bowl. We're going to come back and we're going to see how the Rams, this exciting young coach, have and the guy who pulls him around on the sidelines like he's a puppet, and also a guy who uses a game clock management coach himself, a game clock management expert, how they go and beat the evil empire, hopefully. My name's Tony Dunn. You can follow me on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. Cody, where can they catch up with you?
At CODYLAC, Cody Lack on Twitter. Guys, follow the work I'm doing on Draft Tech, man. Every Wednesday, there's going to be a brand new mock draft with an in-depth analysis on the Panthers' first and second round pick. That goes live every Wednesday. I'm doing some good work over there at Draft Tech. I'm having fun doing it. And check it out, man. And that's all for me.
Big thanks to all the people in the chat room. 10 Tizzy, Underground West, Jake DeLome, Pete Thomas. Thank you for joining the show. The number's 252-228-5098. Like, subscribe. Check us out next Tuesday as we come back. The brand new season. Big optimism. It's just bright, shiny skies ahead of us as we go into a new season and our 7th season as a podcast. Support the show. Grow Panther Nation. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Keep pounding.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan.
Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.